Welcome to another week of TCP, episode 212. Your weekly catch up on things that have happened around the Overwatch space. Where I mean, every week we try and catch up. And say, man, what did happen? What did happen? Sometimes some stuff does happen. Sometimes a lot of stuff happens. Something that we can't do this week is talk about Attack on Titan because Yiska didn't watch the episode. Shame on you. And now we have nothing. So what will we talk about for the intro instead, Yiska?
Yeah.
Since you failed to watch the episode and you didn't do your homework.
Did you catch up on Demon Slayer?
I've never seen that in my life. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's legitimately.
We've also never set a precedent for watching that. Like we've never talked about it, discussed it, or have any sort of like
basic taste.
Expectation to have that as a thing we're meant to be watching.
It is one of those like hyper popular shonen, just
it's
cool guys fighting each other. Yeah, I mean, it is very pretty.
It is. Yeah. It. Let's be honest. Like a lot of the draw is just like the quality.
Oh yeah.
The animation.
I've seen the screenshots before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie
it's
to
hard
you.
Not to.
I initially thought this was like some My Hero Academia spinoff. The anime is all the same to me,
hilarious.
man. It's
I mean, it kind of.
It's probably not even that different, to be honest. It's probably all the same, same plot lines.
What is
it? It was a shonen, right? So it's some kid who doesn't know he has powers, and then he discovers some latent power because he needs to save somebody, and then over several seasons he gets slowly more powerful, and then his rival becomes his friend, and then there's some like really big bad boy that they have to beat, and then there's some even big one, and then just power creeping of enemies until we're 10 years down the line and there's nothing to write about. Am I about warm?
I feel like it's pretty on the nose, but it's significantly more dark. The premise of the show is
so
very, very dark.
Some characters actually die then. So what I said, but then there's some permadeath. What I said, but with permadeath. Yeah, there we go. So good, we're good. I could be a shonen writer. I reckon I could.
But it also looks beautiful.
Probably.
And it's a pretty cool I'm into magic systems, or like if they're done well, if there are any coherence to them, and if they serve a purpose to drive the narrative forward. If you want, we can at some point just shit on the entirety of Marvel that has been like post like Avengers type of situation, especially now, dude. Oh my god, is everything meaningless now? But
is it?
Yeah, absolutely meaningless.
I have no idea. I think I'm up to date. The only thing I haven't seen is the new Hawkeye.
Right.
And bits and pieces of the What If. I did not enjoy that series. But otherwise, I'm up to date. No, that's a lie. I haven't. I still need to watch the new Spider-Man, and I haven't been able to because I'll probably catch the COVID if I go. Also, I think I got the COVID already, and I didn't want to spread it to other people, so I just haven't done it.
Fair.
More than fair.
Yeah, you kind of need to watch that in order to get my point about
it. It hasn't shown up on any of the merchant ships I raid while I'm on the high seas. So every time I sail up and come side to side parallel next to a merchant ship, and I invade, I board the ship and sack them for all the wealth. No copies of the new Spider-Man to be found anywhere on those. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess like once you've seen it, let's put a pin in it and talk about like what consequences really mean in a universe where, I mean, you saw trailers of that movie, right?
I think it's basically been spoiled to me already. First of all, the trailers had huge spoilers in them. Second of all, like the shameless YouTubers, just like they don't even care. There's like literal spoilers in the thumbnail. Like that's how shameless it is. It's like it's actually kind of gross, but I mean, hey, some people do anything for a click. So yeah, I mean, at this stage, it's like I think, and if you're Marvel, it actually works in your favor because it means you have to go see it, lest you be spoiled, if you actually care, that is. So it creates this kind of like necessity to go and watch it as soon as you can.
Yeah. I guess underlying point is like life would be pretty meaningless if you had infinite tries and were immortal, basically. Like, it's really hard to build any meaningful storyline if everything can be undone, right? Like, every mistake and everything. And there's also...
That's the problem with Endgame, isn't it?
Yes. That already... the thing is, with Endgame, you at least had some idea that, like, it was, like, a monumental effort. It was just like, oh my god, this is going to happen once. It really shouldn't have happened. But we lucked out, we hit the keyhole, and like we get this one life back, right? And we get to try again once. That shit's now out of the window. We have infinite tries.
You know what that kind of reminds me of? I remember watching Dragon Ball Z, even as a child, watching Dragon Ball Z. And the first time I was like, oh, they killed Goku. But wait, he's not dead. Oh, they just revived him.
Yeah.
That's when I'm like, well, this show just has no stakes. Don't get me wrong. I still enjoyed it for like the action and the fact that, like, as a kid, that was like one of the few animes imported from Japan that you could watch on TV.
Yeah.
And so it was still cool, you know? But from a story perspective, no stakes involved at all. Like, oh, yeah, somebody dies. Well, no, really dead. No one actually ever dies. They can just infinitely come back. So, I mean, like, so what's the fucking point? You know? Like,
yeah. We'll talk about it. But there was a situation, like, I think the average movie viewer in my showing just didn't think through those implications. And it was one supposedly emotional situation where everyone's like near crying, and I wanted to laugh in their face because they don't understand the mechanics of this movie. Like, it was really, really upsetting. I don't know. Including my friends, by the way. But being
shame
a good
on
friend,
you for being emotionally adverse.
I kept it in myself. And only ever, like, basically, if they like ask me how I rate this movie, and it came up, we got like an app, right, where we just like enter all the movies we've watched, and everyone has like a list. But I didn't know the ratings were public, and they were like, "What do you mean you gave that movie 2 out of 4 stars?" And I'm like, "Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. I will destroy this movie for you, and prove to you that your tastes are absolutely horrific." Like,
so you guys rate movies out of 4?
It's a weird. It's called
5,
an app
10.
called Letterbox. I have no idea what that is.
I'm gonna start. I've heard a little bit. I'm gonna start a rating where you rate it out of 37.
It's the worst too
Don't
because
ask
it
me.
has half stars.
It's just a random. I'm just gonna throw a random inconsequential number. Rate it out of 30. Hey, on a scale of 1 to 37, what do you think? Just
17.
It's just completely random. Like,
I'm also incredibly pissed at people. You know, when you go out of 10, right? So, okay, I can understand. Like, it depends on what your ruler is, right? But if you say the best movie I think that was ever made is a 10, and everything else gets like degraded there, we have no problem. I think, like, I wouldn't use my scale like that. I don't think there has been a 10-10 movie. I don't think there has been a 10-10 anything, right? By my own tastes, for anything ever, right? Literally everything has flaws. For my, like, there's, like, depending on what kind of mood you catch me in that day, I will rate it below 10, right? Because molecules fly weirdly in my brain, and I evaluate it.
I think Phantom Menace is a 10-10.
Right.
Just me, though. Just me.
And then, now my problem is, do you know these people that have 20 10-10 movies? You're wrong. And you're shit person.
Yeah.
Like,
I see that point. I do see that point.
Who want everybody in the playoffs? Like, oh yeah, that's a playoffs team. Yeah, they could win. Yeah.
Bro.
Like, they could be in the playoffs.
Hey, Yiska, are those people called IGN? Do they just rate everything down? You know what?
Unreal, man. Like, it's the worst. These are the same people that have like 27 players in their top 10. You know? No, it's just fair. It feels like it should be. No, do the list. Shut the fuck up. Evaluate things against each other. Nothing can be. And then, like, those are the same people that have like 27 10-10s, but then every other movie is also a 1 out of 10. No, it isn't. You hyperbolic, binary thinking idiot.
Just do like, here's like, give me a rating between 1 and 0.
Yeah, like,
One is I liked it. 0, I didn't like it. Just give me that rating.
Rate, please. 0 out of 1 stars. Nice. We've invented your rating. This is the worst. I don't know. It's the worst. And I unfortunately have friends like this that think like this. It's either war or bad. And
your standard of friendship is just so low, Yiska. I can't believe you.
It's getting. I'm trying to re-educate. What can I say?
No wonder you're like trying to EV your nephew. You're like, I'm going to create the perfect human being here who has perfect standards. I'm going to EV the fuck out of this child.
I'm trying to avoid the worst, you know? Just like make that, like, how they say you should raise children that you like? I'm only partially involved. I'm only 25% of that human's genetic
I would love
code,
it.
but I still
I would love
feel
it if like you put all the numbers and all the stats through the algorithm on the machine, and it spits out a piece of like some sort of kind of command for you, I suppose, and then you bring that to your sister, and it's like, well, according to the data that I put in here, the most optimal way to raise this child would be like if I take custody. So if you don't mind, this child belongs to me now.
No, it wouldn't be. It really wouldn't be. Actually, like, I can't even hold babies, dude. I recently tried. I freaked. Do you not?
Yeah,
do you guys get anxiety if you hold?
That's fine, dude. I mean,
yes.
Isn't doesn't the saying go like, all babies land on their feet? So like if you drop one, I think it'll be fine.
No, dude, they would land on their heads. Like there's definitely like Jello, the Jello side of a baby, of the jelly toast sandwich is definitely the head, dude.
If you had a baby mounting a cat and it was dropped, how would it land? On the cat's feet or on the baby's head?
I mean, it is basically like the situation where you now have like
infinite energy and
just perpetual motion.
Yeah, infinite energy, right? Yeah.
Only if it's dropped by me, though. That's dude.
You'll get over it like once you do it more. Like you just have to kind of like build yourself up. But yeah, I was very much the same way. Like, oh my god, very fragile, will break. Please take.
Yeah,
and you'll get used to it.
Like I had my nephew on my arm, and then he was moving. He was chilling though, but like moving, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm going to drop him. He's going to wiggle free."
Yes.
Like
of course you catastrophize. I get you.
Yeah.
But you will get more comfortable. He'll get more comfortable with you. It will happen.
You got to get stronger in order for me to take that.
Yes, it's the baby's problem. You're right.
Maybe we could put him. You know these giant inflatable balls that people go into. Maybe we can get one of those, and I
think they made a movie of that.
Really? What's it called?
Bubble Boy.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. What do they do in there? What kind of movie is it? Is it an adult entertainment movie?
No, it's a fucking. I mean, kind of. It's it's a comedy.
Okay.
I mean, it's definitely for adults, but it's not like that.
Right. There you go. Yeah. Long story short, I'm never like, unless it's my child, because I feel like at that point, I'm sort of destroying what I made or helped make. I feel less, I also feel like maybe my genetics would then kick in and realize like if you don't do it, nobody else will. But for now, I'm freaking the fuck out, dude. Like, I'm the type of person that walks through a cafeteria with his, with his food on like, what's it called? Like the thing that you put the food on and the drinks. You know what I'm talking about?
A tray?
Like a tray. And I will have an out-of-body experiences in anxiety of dropping that thing, dude. It's unreal. Like
you have out-of-body experiences of dropping trays.
Dude, it's worse. I don't feel like my hands are part of my body. Unironically true.
The more I learn about the inner mechanisms of your brain, the more I'm convinced you're not a real person.
It is weird, dude. It's like
your human suit is showing.
Yeah.
You are something else, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Oh, you successfully infiltrated the human species. Well done. Cool. So that's what we talked about instead of Attack on Titan. For those that did watch the latest episode, give yourself a pat on the back. Enjoy. I don't know. Enjoy something that you enjoy, and congratulations for being well cultured. And then also look forward to the next week's episode of the Attack on Titan podcast. No, it's there's some crazy shit happening in right now. These 2 episodes, and I did accurately guess it will be taking place over 2 episodes. Is pretty wild. So yeah, I don't even know what I can say. I can't really say anything about it because I don't. It's such a spoiler heavy episode that it's like you can't even really talk about it unless you've seen it. It's like they shoved all the exposition in 20 minutes. It's like, wow, there's a lot of exposition that happened. I'm like, my mind hasn't caught up yet. Well, I mean, I'm not me because I already read the manga. But for people discovering the first time, it's like I need to watch that whole episode again because I'm not too sure I understood it completely. So
those are I'm not to completely hijack, but I'm rewatching Ghost in the Shell, and there are episodes like that, and I've noticed like throughout a lot of anime where there's just like hyper like exposition heavy episodes that you do feel like you need to rewatch and just kind of like, wait a second, okay, tell me more. Yes, backstories and lore and just everything, and it's just like you just your brain just starts melting. It's like, please get back to the action quickly. I need a break from all of this info dump.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like if your stuff is too needlessly complex, that is definitely annoying. Like sometimes you need to build it up, but it like you should probably pace the explanation.
You have to. Yeah, you definitely want to.
I'm also not a fan of hand-holding. Like, if you spelled it out once, it lacks 100 pages. That's enough. Like, the reader should be able to piece it together. You don't need to recall it. Like, don't take idiots by hand. Like, it's in there, so you established it, and that should be part of what the understanding of the reader is. But yeah, like, if you just info dump and explain an entire, like, mechanism or magic system in the moment, or, like, character family that impacts it, like, I don't know, at that point, like, that's probably just lackluster writing.
Yeah.
Cool. The only other thing that happened this week was Tyler 1 has left T1.
Nice.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
What else happened? Addison Rae launches a blue light protection skincare brand. I don't know. I didn't even really know who she was.
Really?
Oh
man.
What about? I'm not about the Twitch meta.
No, she's one of the biggest TikTok creators.
I don't have TikTok. I don't use TikTok.
Boomer.
You're older than me. And and you have a child, so so take this L. No, actually, it's not even really your child. But you can get custody. Just again, take my advice and just get the custody. It's fine. And what else? I'm just going down live stream fail really, and I've realized like, wow, I don't know 90% of these people. I think it's very healthy that I don't know 90% of these people because that shows that I don't have strange parasocial relationships with people who don't know me, who I don't know them either. You know what I mean? Like on the internet, I find that to be really weird.
Yeah.
Touch more grass, people. Remind yourself to touch some grass. If you haven't touched grass this week, or preferably this day, just remind yourself to touch some grass if possible. It's always healthy. Pat yourself for watching Attack on Titan, and then afterwards, touch some grass as you contemplate what in the world is going on in that world, and then continue with your day and enjoy the things that you enjoy. And hopefully, we'll enjoy this episode as we'll get into it proper now. Episode 2112. 112 is that 2112? It's just 212. Brought to you by our lovely patrons: Battle Crab, Refined Bean, Bronze Babu, Halchare, Prophet Picasso, Chris R34444. Congrats on the Bengals, by the way. Cash67, Lolshin, Pork Chop Sammy, Rick Zane, Sir Girthalot, Volamel Smooth Nuts, and Your Misery. Headline topic for the week is, without a doubt, and we didn't get to cover this last week because it kind of happened after the recording. But Bren and Sideshow have announced that they won't be returning to the Overwatch League for this season. And I might as well get the actual tweet out. And they were pretty identical tweets, so we can just read one of them, and then you guys can talk about it while I go to bed for 30 minutes. What was it? Where is it? Does everyone have it on hand? I should have been more prepared. I don't even
probably can find it.
Have it on hand here. It's really recent, wasn't it?
Get into it. I mean, maybe. The boys probably tweet a fair amount, so.
Okay, here we go. Bren and I currently do not have an agreement for 2022 with Overwatch League, marking the end of our 4 years as broadcast talent. We wish the league and our colleagues the best of luck for Overwatch 2. So I guess I'll just go first. Like what I'll say is, like, obviously, I love these guys. I've known them for a super long time. Again, for people that don't know the background and the lore and the backstory, like I've known Sideshow and Bren since literally the start of Overwatch, when we were all just doing super amateur stuff. We all started, like, if I'm allowed to even say, like, kind of around the same level of casting, like just kind of, you know, a tiny bit of experience from other games like Team Fortress. I'm a TF2 guy as well. Those guys are TF2 guys. We never really crossed paths in TF2 because we're obviously in different regions and across the other side of the world. But, you know, we'd done some amateur stuff. We'd done, you know, esports for some love, but we weren't super professional. We're kind of just making stabs in the dark and finding our way through. One of my very, very first Overwatch casts ever was actually with Bren. So this is like a lot of history there. I've known these guys for like a super long time in that regard. I'm like, you know, we were not like talking and texting every day or anything like that, but like just in terms of knowing who they are and having that kind of, you know, acquaintance and just being a colleague and just being somebody in the space. So a lot of respect to these two guys and everything they've done in the Overwatch space, in the esports space, and things they're doing in Valorant as well. There's a lot of crossover in all of our interests and things we're doing, and just hanging out with them. Like, I've also met them in person. I hung out with them in Bangkok. Brilliant time. Just a lot of fun. Just a great atmosphere. And I think the broadcast team in general, especially this last year that when I joined on, yeah, it was like a really great atmosphere. We had a couple of hangouts outside the broadcast as well through, you know, the Discords and whatnot. And it's just really cool. So I got a lot of respect professionally and also personally with these guys, and I wish them nothing but the best. And I mean, I don't even need to wish them success because I know they're already finding it. I mean, they can do anything really. They're doing great stuff with Plat Chat. Who knows? Maybe they're getting some Valorant casting. They're pretty free and open to it now. They do great, you know, jobs on their own content as well in terms of streams and viewers and all that kind of jazz. So, you know, they're fine. They're going to be absolutely fine, and they have their reasons for not wanting to return for this year. The facts that have been stated is that they were given an offer. The offer was not. They could not agree on the offer, meaning that they did not believe they wanted to take that offer. I'm not going to paraphrase too hard here, but essentially, you know, there was no agreement between the league and them on what, you know, what was going to take to bring them back. So they've, at this point, I don't know if they did say they're not going to be like permanently gone, that maybe if things change in the future and a different offer comes on through or a different opportunity, or, you know, maybe they just feel like Overwatch 2 is a game that they really, really, really want to be a part of, then yeah, and possibly they'll come back. So it's not really like a goodbye, just like they'll just be moving away, at least for the time being, and seeing how things go. You could maybe look at like an extended hiatus, and wish them all the best. And again, got nothing but love and respect there. So beyond that, though, I don't think there's much I can personally say, because things that I actually know that aren't public is not really like, I'm not obviously not going to talk about them, but it's also, there's not like dirty laundry or anything. It's not like there's some really crazy stuff happening that like I'm hiding. It's just like a really sensitive topic for someone that's working really close to this particular headline. It's just like, it's I don't know. I think it's just safer and better if I don't make too many comments. So I'll let you guys mostly handle this. I've said my piece. I've said really all that I want to say about it, and you guys can go on and do your thing. And then when we're ready, we'll move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I think to start where we probably agree, and Yiska, you can stop me when we when we start to disagree, right? Obviously, I think I speak for everybody here in saying that it's sad to see them go. Obviously, they'll do very good things, right? I think where I would guess we probably differ is what this means moving forward. I think I'm generally more optimistic in a weird way. It's very clear that both of these fine young gentlemen are quite funny, quite entertaining, right? And that's not something that maybe is the best for a official broadcast, right? It's of my opinion that I think this is, in a weird way, really good for Overwatch. I think having like a competitive second, and by no means is this throwing any shade at anybody else doing like co-streams or side streams, whatever you want to call them. But I think having something that's, well produced on a platform that people kind of are already familiar with, like, Plat Chat or wherever they want to host it, with faces that people know and love and are, entertained by en masse, as shown by their obviously number of years with the Overwatch League and their podcasts and all that kind of stuff. I think this is there's potential for a really, really good thing to come back. Much like the Sideshow at home. I think you mentioned this before we got into recording. Sideshow prior to him getting his visa, that kind of established the entrance of co-streams, at least in our community, right? I see that almost coming back in a more produced and well put together way that I think is something that people not only want, but is going to push the official broadcast to do more and be more active and maybe even collaborate. I think that could be something that could be interesting. I don't know. It sucks to see them go. Obviously, I want to hear Sideshow and Bren, and I want them to get them, I want to get them like in those finals again, like we used to, but I don't know. I can't shake an optimistic, coloring of this.
Okay, I'm completely on the other side. I think, okay, so I guess let's start with positioning what I think we'll be missing. I think probably more so than everyone else, including Monty, including Doa, including Mitch. I think Bren and Sideshow were way more important in filtering and finding our own audience and the tone in which fandom of Overwatch is celebrated. I think their idea of esports, which is much more akin to mine, like, telling the story of hardship, maybe having some witty remark about that situation, creating tension, whatnot. That type of esport that really goes well in other scenes never really caught on with our demographic. And finding a much more gentle and sort of like being dumb in a very smart way type of content that seems to be vibing with the Overwatch League, that is Sideshow and Bren quintessentialized. I'm not sure if they created that style or molded themselves after that, but that feels very much like Zoomer humor, and which makes sense for a demographic that is likely to be the youngest of bigger esports, just because, outside of Fortnite and whatnot, just because it's the youngest esport, therefore fandom theoretically would likely attract a younger audience because people didn't stick around for too long, if that makes any sense. So I feel like towards that audience, it has been like their ability to iterate on their ideas while being like so lighthearted about it was second to none and shaped the Overwatch League most definitely. I will say there's one, I unfortunately don't have the quote like word for word, but I think Bren tweeted something like, it's the hardest thing in the world to be like a lighthearted fool nowadays, or something like this, right? Maybe Eric can find the quote. It's a while ago, and it is actually super hard when you're constantly being shit on, when you're like when there's public controversies, I will say, of course, they are like, but because of their charisma, they can get away with a lot, right? Like they're almost like the more adapted evolution of whatever Monty was in League of Legends, where he got his criticism off by being funny about it. Sideshow and Bren are first and foremost funny, and then when the time strikes for them, where they find that something is important to address, nobody's pissed at them, even it might run counter the narrative. I'm actually quite surprised with some of the positioning and participations on some broadcasts that people let them off the hook with, just because of who they are. Like it's they carry a lot outside. Their process is very thorough. I think the amount of work that Sideshow puts into his preparation is great. Like, and to be on top of 2 scenes. So I think we're losing a ton there. If anything, I would have liked for them to take more on in terms of finding our audience, because I don't trust anyone else on as much, I would say, on the production side to find that tone as those 2 do. I think Bren almost like invented the greatest showman attribute in the Overwatch League. Maybe I think in fairness you would probably have to say Golden Boy was also part of it. But like the WWE style, like braggadocious, like, but so over the top that nobody really is pissed off, but it's like everyone understands and is in on the joke type of thing. Like others are trying to emulate it, including that nobody has the charisma and like the type of character that Bren has to pull that off consistently, right? And that just makes them the best casters for shit games, right? Like they can, like those guys are not Muteland for me. I will say, like, it's not about my personal taste as much, right? Like I enjoy. People know I'm a big fan of Uber. I'm a big fan of AVRL and Achilles. That's my type of cast. That's my generation's type of casting. I think Sideshow and Bren are the new generation's type of casting. What they want out of the entertainment, and we got to compete with entertainment. We got to compete with YouTube. We got to compete with TikTok for hours watched, and that seems to be the flair or the flavor of content that a younger audience, or an audience at least that Overwatch League has attracted once. And to lose that is a big blow. Now, is that a fumble? Or is that necessarily almost, is there a Steelman case where this is not incompetence by the Overwatch League? I think so. Like, I think that there are definitely scenarios given the current situation where, and okay, because we do this a lot on this podcast, where we say things that we know and phrase them as if we just are making accurate predictions about it. This is not one of those cases. I have no inside information.
This is mostly you. Mostly you do that, by the way. I think like 80% is you doing that.
Right. So I have no inside knowledge about this, because I honestly, like when Kevin Hitt reported that, and we'll get to that as well. I didn't know about this. I hadn't heard of it. So that is an aspect that plays into it. There's an aspect about Microsoft. I mean, we wanted to talk about the earnings call this week that could have been on Tuesday, was delayed or said to be Thursday. And now, because of the impending acquisition, that is not going to happen this week, right? So that is a thing of uncertainty about budgeting and whatnot, right? There are a lot of reasons why this is shifting. I just don't. I think it could be hard to justify the cost depending on what they're asking for. We don't know the number or whatever, even though we have what people said publicly. I think the blank check rhetoric is not helping anyone. That's not true.
Yeah, no.
Like, you're not giving someone a blank check and they just start writing zeros for an evening, right?
Yeah.
So,
and obviously, I think what those people are trying to argue is that, like, obviously you want to keep them, you want to give them that blank check, but Overwatch is not in a position to be handing out blank checks.
Yeah, I think there's a theory where you don't have to pay as much upfront, but involve them more or make it enticing for them to create content around your game and stick around. Where it's equally beneficial, but you're not like personally gaining value of that directly, right? Like they can create value for your game that you don't directly monetize via the broadcast, but by them still sticking around in the scene. And you like maybe you don't have to monetarily entice them there. Maybe you can just offer them something, like for instance a clean feed on a right, like that's just one of my theories. I'm not even sure how much that would help because, once again, there are a lot of smart people that have figured out co-streaming with like being able to do that at the same time and have a pretty good experience about it. Which feels, by the way, weirdly like like esports in like 1999, where we had like Warcraft 3 Winamp type of walk TV where we had to synchronize different broadcasts in order to get like the Winamp era of esports, basically, where you had like a broadcast and then you had a weird system of watching a replay through a network client that allowed you that for it. In that way, it kind of feels like that we're at that part of co-streaming where you need some tool in order to be synced up with a broadcast, which seems like not the final destination. And in the EAT, Riot has shown that there's another way to do this, right? I'd welcome if that was to be the case for Overwatch as well, right? Not just for Bren and Sideshow, but just generally for entertaining people within the scene, and not just for the teams. And if the teams have the possibility to give that right by their contract or whatever, then I'd love for them to spread out and spread the love a little bit wider with their broadcast rights or whatever. That allowed them to have, like, you know, the Defiant co-streamed with Fran or whatever, right? So that said, I think there is a world where they just probably don't understand the value of those two. I'll be honest, whoever is coming after that is a pretty big downgrade. Like that's why I don't get the positivity angle or the optimistic take, because I mean, I think the closest probably is Lecday and Lemon. I think Lemon especially has shown to, and Lecday as well, I think, to be able to like sort of have flavored content that people are into. I'm thinking of like Lecday with the songs that he made, or like the format of, like, you know, pointing out the biggest mistakes or like but in a fun way. Yeah. I think Lemon has that with her TikToks, and they are sort of Overwatch themed that work pretty well. So they definitely have some potential there. They're not as refined as Sideshow and Bren. They have like 3 years on them. They are highly aligned. They have a process going where they can find out. Bro, they have one of the biggest esports in the industry, like third-party podcasts on a dying ass game, man. Like, and they have proven that it can work again. So I don't know. The volume is just not there. It's not within a magnitude what these other people pull. It's not to say that they couldn't get there, but why? Like, the value proposition there is very hard to justify unless, like, I don't know, like Sideshow and Bren asked for like 7 figures or some dumb shit, right?
Sure,
so,
yeah. It's go ahead.
So yeah, I think like it's not all bad, because yes, people can step up. I hope especially those people do. If you don't promote them, at what point, like, this is also a signal of like, okay, the most qualified people in the second row that have been slighted for the longest time are not getting the call up, and now that's not, like, if that was not to happen, you are not getting any developmental talent that of quality in this game, even if Overwatch 2 hits, right? Because you're sending a signal that, like, it's basically by the mercy of the gods. You can't grind up there. That I hate that aspect as well. So, even though I will say it shouldn't be just on grind, it should also be on quality of broadcast. But I think in terms of like, especially Lemon, I would highlight her there. Her ability to attract an audience by herself, by the metrics that I've seen, is probably pretty well established. And if you were to give her more of a platform by having her on a broadcast, I'm pretty certain she'd amass an audience. More so than some of the other hires from SCM did. So the where does that leave us? And just sort of to end my rant, I think it's massively unfortunate. I think there's a high chance we're just losing some of the best talent we've had, some of the most people that grew up with us and alongside us. And I should have caveated this because I've known these guys for a long time, dude. Like, I remember at Takeover 2, just like standing behind Sideshow and Bren is like, should we steal the trophy? It would be funny, right? That was like 2016, 17 or something, right? Pre-Owl. These guys have been on shenanigans ever since, right? And if they were actually to exit, and let's be honest, like if that, like all it takes for them to eject from Overwatch themselves is like another esports that they could start grinding into that has wide scale appeal because they can do it. They've proven that ability in Valorant as well, right?
Sure.
I'm sure Riot also has an idea about them, even though like their hiring practices in itself could be problematic and random, so maybe not. What do I know? But I mean, long story short, big loss, not necessarily a fumble, will hurt her a lot. Talent after that definitely needs time to grow in a very crucial season. And hopefully they can create value for us outside, which is determined by the hand that the broadcast is willing to offer. And I hope if Kevin Hitt's report is true, which I have no doubt because it's Kevin Hitt, that production side extends a hand to guys like this so we don't lose them.
Yeah. In some facet. Obviously, it probably won't necessarily be like mega integrated, maybe some collaborations here or there, but I think it just creates another platform to view this through. It just as another lens, right? And I think that's, if anything, one of the biggest flaws that we've had is there have been such small other ways to view the game, right? Like the co-streams, while they have been there, and I don't mean to, underhand or undercut any of these other people. When you have like two huge platforms, I think that only serves to grow the audience and serve the audience in the best way possible. I'd agree with your comment regarding the Kevin Hitt report. And yeah, I think if you subscribe to the idea that Overwatch 2 generally has some optimistic air about it, I don't think these guys will be too far off. Maybe not their main game by any stretch of the imagination, but I think there's still a lot of potential there to do some really cool things in more creative ways than I think maybe the broadcast would have even allowed. So yeah, last comments for me, pretty positive. Again, sad to see him go, but excited for what comes next from them.
Cool.
Yeah, Kevin Hitt report, huh?
Nice.
Sports Engine.
So, any further comment? Do you get any final thoughts on that?
No, but
before we move away.
No. I think we've sort of found the segue into the report because I think that might be something that might be interesting. There's some tea leaf reading, which once again I have no background info on, but I mean we'll see where it goes.
Okay, so moving away now again. Best wishes for Sideshow and Bren as they move into the new chapter of their careers. Let's talk about the other bit of news that did drop in the week. You mentioned a few times now the Kevin Hitt report. What is that? Headline: Sources: Activision Blizzard to farm out ops for Overwatch League. Activision Blizzard's not a very long article, so I might as well read the whole thing. Activision Blizzard will likely farm out operations for its Overwatch League to a third party. The development comes in the wake of Activision bringing on an esports engine this season to run its Call of Duty League. Overwatch League started in 2018 and CDL started in 2020, have been produced and broadcast by Activision Blizzard since their respective inceptions. The move to third parties also comes amid Microsoft plans to acquire Activision. Microsoft is already using a third-party esports engine in this case to operate the relaunch of its Halo Championship Series. With the news that ESL and Faceit, the largest tournament organizers in the space, will merge into ESL Faceit Group after a purchase by Savvy Gaming Group for $1.5 billion, it looks to be more movement and investment to the third-party operator space as it relates to esports production. So that is verbatim, quote for quote, exactly what Kevin Hitt wrote. Again, not a very long article. If you want to go check it out, you can as well. But basically everything I just said is exactly what the article entails. So let's break this down piece by piece here. What does farm out mean? So does any Yiska maybe who wants to sort of tackle like the definition of what farm out ops specifically means here?
That's a great question, because I feel like everybody has their own like interpretation of like what that means, because it doesn't like, it's not clear. It is very vague, where it's just like, okay, are we sowing the seeds and testing the field to see what buyers may be out there who might be interested in it? Are we working on a deal? Like, are we like tilling the land with esports engine to build a deal? Like, am I wrong in thinking this is just kind of vague?
What's farm? Like, what word would you use instead of farm? Is there a synonym for farm here?
My issue is that like I don't know, because I don't. It's tough.
What about outsource? Is that not a thing that people say anymore? Outsource?
Yeah, I would say outsource. Farm is tough, but not to be pedantic, as I tend to. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little vague.
Okay. I think that's the point of the language almost. I feel like
sure,
maybe Kevin or his editor would probably not use that word unless it has had some ambiguity to it. Maybe
so purposely ambiguous.
I'm not sure if that was. I mean, there's so many layers or ways ambiguity could be used here. It could be like maybe the source just like used that phrase, and but then again, you would have a second or third source sort of backing that up, which would help you to shape the understanding of that. Maybe there is no clear situation or understanding of what that might entail, and you want to catch all term that incorporates all the possibilities that it might have.
So, yeah. I mean, one of the possibilities is outsource is obviously one of them, which is probably the most straightforward one. I'd say the most likely one, if everything goes through the way it sounds like it might go through. I mean, I don't even know what other options there would be. Like, it just seems like outsource is the most obvious choice of any particular option for what this all means. So I think we can just be pretty safe in assuming it means Activision Blizzard intend to outsource operations of the Overwatch League. Now, I think the next question, continue.
Now, operations is also an interesting term, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like, I mean, to what degree? Because I think we kind of talked about this pre-show as well. It's like, well, how much of the operation? Because you have different layers and different tiers, and this isn't like CDL, where CDL just operates in North America. You have an entire APAC broadcast, and part of this that is kind of separate. Like, I mean, the APAC side of the broadcast, you have to liaise and work with the China and Korea teams. I'm not talking about the franchise. I'm talking about the broadcast teams and the Blizzard offices regionally over there, where they handle a lot as well. And they have their own, language broadcast. The Koreans have the Korean language broadcast. China has the China language broadcast, and that China language broadcast is pretty huge in terms of what they're achieving, because they do like massive studio stuff with everybody on site, on location. And they also cast in Chinese Mandarin over the NA games as well, and what I'm sure is probably like really awkward hours for them. But Yeah, that wouldn't. That's not. For example, that would not be going to Esports Engine. Esports Engine isn't flying over to China to manage that. So there's so many different pieces of the puzzle here. So like just saying ops, like how much? What does that mean? It is quite vague as well.
I think to your point, this does kind of signal, or maybe this is better posed as a question. Like, does this not signal a similar, like, mirroring report for the APAC region that I think is a little bit more feasible, understandable, and saying like, look, all of the numbers seemingly are pointing towards Asia. There seemingly is a larger Asian market than there is in the West. That shouldn't be too much trouble, I would guess, that to have somebody either collaborate or can take full control of operations for the Overwatch League in the
that's
APAC
not
region.
happening.
You don't think
that's
so?
not happening.
Okay.
No way. It's already a third party. That's already like, I don't know if it's. I don't want to speak factually on something I'm not 100% on, but it's like that's already being run and operated outside of the NA production. Like that's totally different team. You know, like when there's 0% chance that Esports Engine is fucking operating the China broadcast.
Of course, no. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that like in the same way that Activision Blizzard is looking at, potential logistics operators for NA, they may be looking for an Asia counterpart for APAC.
I'm pretty sure that's already the case.
Okay, then that's just my
again. That's a pretty sure from me, and not a 100% absolute sure. It's speculative on my part, but the way I look at this is if you looked at CDL Kickoff, which is the preseason event that just happened for the CDL. That was in Esports Arena Arlington, which I think is now partnered with Envy, aka Dallas Fuel. They ran LAN for that. They ran a full LAN event, with audience and everything. Players obviously playing on LAN. Prior to that, I'm fairly certain, correct me if I'm wrong, but Esports Engine also did the NYXL homestand back in 2020. So they have a lot of experience. I mean, this is Esports Engine, for people that don't know, is like MLG, basically the same personnel MLG. It's Adam Apicella. It's this is MLG staff basically starting a new company that's not called MLG, but spiritually it is the successor of. You can see it in that way. And they've been running true live events, and I can see it in a way where, like, depending on again how deep is the operations got to run, like, do they take over everything, or is it some parts? Is it maybe just the LAN parts? Is it maybe just the live events?
The cynic in me, it screams like just logistics, where you're just taking over like live events, where it's just like, figure it out for us and we'll pay you, which isn't a bad thing, but it's definitely not utilizing the talent that's there. And maybe I'm overstating what their kind of job is. I would guess that there's more of a creative mind that I think is there, from their years, like Avril saying, doing MLG, and they have such a mind for speaking to the Western esports audience, and have done so for years, with either how they run their events. I think there's more there to tap into, so I hope it isn't just some sort of logistics partner, and you really can get in there and work with this incredible team that has, again, a resume that literally nobody, I think, in the West can match, outside of like maybe ESL, but that's just another, that's another region entirely. So it's a give and a take.
And it's not even like 100. I think it's very heavily hinted at that if this were to go through, Esports Engine would be probably a very likely and predictable partner for ops to be handed to. But at no point did Kevin say it was that's confirmed or anything. It is confirmed for CDL, but not for what is for Overwatch League. So there could be other bidders in there. We could be seeing the likes of, this new ESL Faceit merger could appear. Really hard to say, but I don't know if that aside, it's pretty speculative on like what it actually means. I think the only other thing to talk about is like, do we think this is a positive move? Does this improve things? Is it a detriment? Is this a bad idea?
I would probably lean positive. No, like this seems.
I'm still like undecided. I'm still like a little unsure. I'm not too sure.
Okay.
Could just be a side grade. It could just be like a sideways move. I'm a pretty neutral on the fence kind of person.
Yeah.
Or am I? I don't know. And in a lot of things I am, and some other things I'm not. But here I think I am a little bit on the fence because I don't know if it is good or bad. It's a little unknown. It's very in unknown territory.
Yeah, there's still a lot of details, and I think, and don't let me speak for you, but it sounds like that's kind of what we're waiting for. Is like, okay, what does this actually look like if this deal was actually to go through? What are the details of this? You know, to what degree is this partnership? Is it just running live events, which, let's face it, in the plague years are harder and far and few between, right? So, like, how much of a partnership is it really? Or are we, kind of not onboarding, that's a little more aggressive than I think is worth it, but really utilizing these talented people and trying to put on a production that is more accessible to the North American audience. It's interesting. I think, yeah, listening to some of your thought processes, keeps me a little bit more tentative, reels me in a little bit, because when I hear MLG, 16-year-old me is like, oh my God, cool. Like, takes me back to the old Dr. Pepper gaming lounges and, Hot Pocket this and Stride Gum that, but, yeah, I don't know. Like, I sympathize with the people, kind of like how I was just doing, going and looking at the Microsoft deal and looking at Esports Engine possibly coming in and, having this weird, nostalgia trip, thinking that Halo and Overwatch and StarCraft is going to be back in the MLG Pro circuit like it used to be, right? Like, obviously that's probably never going to happen. But it's a fun thought, though.
Yiska?
Whoops. Yeah, I mean, if it was to be a Esports Engine, I think Adam sort of like hinted maybe that this was at least something that he would like to do in terms of like having FPS in one hall. I'm not sure if that's really that 2022 in my estimation. Like he had this idea, and that very much comes from MLG days. For those unaware, like back in the day, MLG was the event, and then tournaments would go to these events. Sort of like how ESL used to be, where an ESL event would have Dota and CS:GO or CS or 1.6 or at the same time and whatnot, and like several events on the circuit. And now it's more game focused, right? And events just like run that one game in a stadium or whatever, and it feels like a step back to revert, even though I'm not sure if that necessarily is progress. But I think also the overlap of that, basically it's a very different experience to be watching a match in a stadium like you would in sports, or to have like this exhibition feel where you're walking around the venue and there that we're playing Halo and there we're playing Overwatch or whatever, right? So I'm not sure if that vision is 2022, but yeah.
I don't think that sounds appropriate for the I mean, this is my opinion now, but it just seems like where, like, when you have what is meant to be individual, unique, well, I guess they are kind of clones of each other, unique in the sense that the games are unique, leagues. It's very much Overwatch does its own thing, Call of Duty does its own thing. Trying to like put them all under the same roof with Halo, it's just such a weird thing. It's like you almost devaluing the brands of everything at the same time. Maybe that's just my take on it. You really,
I could see that.
You'd want to do your own. And for one, it wouldn't be like a proper Overwatch League event. This would be more like a third party event. I feel like it sounds more like a thing outside normal league play. Now, could I see a situation where, let's say, we go to Esports Arena Arlington and we run back-to-back events, like weekend number 1, CDL is going to run this weekend, then the next weekend Overwatch League is going to come run their games. Now that could happen, just because logistically that saves you money and that makes sense. You know, to sort of hash it all out and do it all together back-to-back like that. But they're still individual events. It's not like some big gaming festival like it used to be. I don't know. It is very old school in a way of thinking, and I think in a lot of ways we've moved past that now. I don't know. It just doesn't. It doesn't feel like a good brand exercise to do that kind of thing in the current state. Like it almost devalues all the different games instead of just like all the games should hypothetically be big enough that they should have their own event where they are the flagship. You know.
Yeah, I agree. It was. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just like very nostalgic of these people that created it at that time. Maybe that time is past. I will say there are very few things that would bring me more joy than like Overwatch players and COD players cross-pollinating every once in a while, and some of that attitude to rub off on our professionals, because man, do CDL players go ham.
I'm sure all of our Korean Overwatch League players will have a lot of great time talking to the United States Call of Duty players, and they're going to cross paths plenty. That'll definitely happen.
The trickle down effect is COD chats talk to Overwatch League Americans or like English speakers, and then that attitude trickles into the team atmosphere, and suddenly we have a players union. You know, like that's
that's what it'll take. Yo, instantly we have a players union. Okay, all the Western players.
What's going to happen? You know what is because it hasn't happened in COD. But you know what else? Like, these guys don't understand how much leverage they have, or they understand too well. I'm not sure. But, like, the individual... Like, Crim6 argues for points as if every single player could just walk if, like, Activision pissed him off, right? Like, the amount of leverage or, like, no care in the world he applies to statements, even inflammatory ones, is insane, right? And he just takes that one. And we've had zero professionals that had like we're going to play that card whatsoever, right? Like I think that's also only some confidence and also some platform that years of being a professional player breeds. Like the difference between like Overwatch League players and CS and COD and in terms of like business maturity is insane. Like it's night and day, right? So I'd like to for that experience, but like that's really such a minor point. And I think yes, it generally would cut, like it would take away from that. It's also not sure, like the franchises aren't directly related. Like yes, some teams have the same locations and whatnot, right? But what like can COD be played in Seoul? Like can you get a venue and play COD there? Kind of hard, right? So
is it? I mean, just like the dumb logistics of it, right? Like, yeah, of course you'd probably be able to get like a copy of the game and install it and play it.
Yeah, no, that's that. I mean, that's
everything
possible,
around
but
that.
Do you get more than 5 asses in a seat?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the question, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think it can have a lot of positive, like the more endemic talent that has been filtered out to do good production by the pressure of the market, like, or the interest of the fans is another word for it, then the more likely we are to get what we want. And I think to a decent degree, we saw how sluggish official or rather developer-sided things can move. Then again, there's only so much league ops or like operations, whatever that entails, could do. Our problem was barely ever that, even though there are problems with that, but we don't even get to care about them because the game is so shit, right? Like, so once we figured that out, maybe that will come into the forefront where we have the next big thing to tackle, right?
I don't see this as like a positive unless the third party that ends up taking over operations gets a lot of creative control and use that creative control to do really cool things.
Yeah.
And beyond that as well, the where things are currently at would have to be very stale and refuse to move forward, and then a third party takes over and actually starts moving forward, right? That would be a win. However, the way things are currently, especially how last season played out, the broadcast was better than ever. I think new ideas were flowing in. There was a lot of forward movement in developing the style, the tone in a better direction, and just general improvements to the broadcast. Like, this is a high quality broadcast. I mean, fuck's sake, you have Richard Lewis doing a 40-minute video where he shits on the league, but he'll still easily admit that the broadcast itself is actually pretty good, right? There's a lot of other issues that you can say, like, oh yeah, these things are not good, but I think like you even have someone that's probably one of the most critical people of the entire league still say, actually, the broadcast quality, the people on it and the way they display the broadcast is decent. He said that in his video. You can check it out. And so I think we've had some great movement. So I don't know that going to a third party necessarily is going to I think we're already on a great track.
Sure.
Like, is it necessarily like, really, to me, it can only get worse if it goes to somebody else. Maybe I'm being a little bit too protective in that kind of sense, and we don't even have enough information on that. A, if it is actually going to happen, and B, how much control is going to be given or taken away or maintained, because there's still a world where it's just a pure white label. The third party has no creative control, and they simply exist to fulfill a brief, and that's it. Right? Creative control is maintained within the current league itself between certain important people that make those decisions, and then they utilize the raw manpower and the raw, just the workhorse of the third party to execute the vision and the plan. But the vision and plan still is retained internally.
And that's agreed there 100%. And I guess it's just a constant reminder for me that we are going into a new game. So I wonder if that also plays a role in this, in, looking at, yes, we did some successful things with the Overwatch League, with the life cycle that was Overwatch 1. That was great. But is there room for positive change, or maybe a fresh set of eyes to come in with a third party to say, hey, look, this is maybe how we would do it. You can take what you want from that, but just at least having an added creative voice maybe would be, I don't know, I think remotely positive. I think it's a good thing if it was just a white label with an extra, I guess meaningless vouch in some ways. But yeah, I would tend to agree. Approach tentatively and
I would
wait for details.
I would also like to see, if that does happen, for them to absorb some of the staff currently involved with the production side of the league now, because the people I work with, it's not just because I work with them and I have some sort of specific loyalty, but I just think everyone did a good job. I don't want. I'm of the opinion that if something is currently working, don't try and fix what isn't broken. If anyone knows me, there's one of my repeated phrases is just don't reinvent the wheel. Something there and it works. Don't fuck with it. Just stay away. It works. Don't touch it. You can only make it worse if you can only make something that's good worse if if you come in and change something when it was already good. And people can say what they want about the state of the game, the state of development, and X or Y other reasons, and long off season, blah 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 blah. But when the season starts and the stream begins, and you watch the broadcast, all of that kind of stuff has been massively improved. And I can, internally as well, I can feel it, I can see it. It's very tangible to me. And the people that I work with internally in the last season, things were very smooth, and it was good to work with them. So I'd like to see people retain, and that even goes towards observing staff, because if you're not, let's say for example, operations goes to a third party and they take all broadcast responsibilities, if you're not directly just importing the current Overwatch League observers, who are you getting? Because whoever you're getting, they're not the Overwatch League observers, and hypothetically that means they're worse. So how is that an improvement? That can only be a downgrade, right? And that's only one part of the stuff.
Yeah. Thing is, I think, aren't they outsourced anyway already?
No, they're internal. They work in the entire Overwatch League is done internally.
Yeah, I think
at least on the NA side.
I think they are freelance though, but yeah, I mean that's still
Yeah, but they're not outsourced to like some observing company. They're freelance. Like I'm a freelancer.
Yeah,
I'm a freelance contractor. They're contracted specifically to the league, and they work directly for the league.
Yeah, right. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah,
cool. Well, wait and see what all of this means. Like you mentioned, Yiska, Kevin Hitt is a pretty reliable source, and something must be along the lines for this article to even be released. But at the same time, we've all kind of noted that it is fairly ambiguous in some of its language choices, probably on purpose because there's a lot of undecided things in there. The fact that CDL is already working with Esports Engine says a lot about this being a rather accurate take or an accurate article, an accurate report, being that there is a precedent set among Activision, Blizzard, Esports, and then beyond that also Microsoft Esports, even though the whole Microsoft thing doesn't really enter the equation for esports in Activision Blizzard, at least in my opinion, until we're closer to finalizing a merger. Like we're such an early stage now. I don't see a case where Microsoft rolls up today and be like, right, this is what we're doing with the Overwatch League now. Like that's not what's happening. That cannot be happening. So, as things are, we still got 3-ish months. We just started Feb. We got 3-ish months until the start of the league. There's room for these decisions to be made in that amount of time. So yeah, timeline wise, it makes sense as well. It's not like we're so close to the start that like we're just gonna do this rapid swap to a third party now. Yeah, I think the article is pretty legit. So we'll see what happens with it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, next bit of news. What do we have here? We're going to be talking about some actual player movement now. Actually, before we do that, we're going to address Fusion and where their roster is currently at and what they're planning to do with their roster. So they've announced open trials for coach and support, while also at the same time signing a support in Fixa from Uprising Academy. So they'll be looking for another support. Let me actually just get the roster up to see who they currently have and what they need. So they have Fixa and Aim Gods. They're looking for a third support. I would have to guess it's a flex support they're looking for, or at least someone that's flexible enough to play both positions. And they're looking for another coach. They currently have Jin and Chara. Yeah, I could see them putting in a third coach. I think a lot of teams run with 3 coaches, one head coach, 2 assistant coaches, or 1 head coach, 1 assistant coach, and 1 player coach. A player coach meaning like a more positional, direct coach that works with players on a more specific, your role, kind of what you need to do as an individual versus more of a macro kind of deal. So yeah, I think the coach part makes a lot of sense, but they're running open trials pretty late, and they will also be running the open trials on presumably it's going to have to be Overwatch 1. I say presumably because I was thinking, are they going to maybe do like a 5v5 workshop code or just do regular Overwatch 6v6? Whatever it is, it will be on Overwatch 1. So at this stage, because the game, it seems like whatever beta build of the game the team's supposed to be playing at is still far enough away. Fusion are like, fuck it, we got to get somebody now. So they're just going to start trialing.
This feels like a red flag to me. Not that Fixa is a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. I can't comment. When I did do some preliminary research going into the contenders community, asking around, not a name that jumped out, but when you look at the pedigree of that team, namely Uprising Academy, was very successful, easily, I don't think I'm speaking too out of school to say arguably second best team in NA at points in time, or at least could compete for it, right? So he does have a positive track record. I guess my concerns are more just Philly as a whole. The more I see this team kind of built out, the more I can't shake this overwhelming sense of Toronto dread where like the team just kind of feels good. Like, yeah, this team looks good on paper. Seems all right. Coaches have some success previously. And then they go out and then they're just like the most milquetoast. Like,
yes, sir.
Fine. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing. Yes, you know, I think everybody's like, oh my God, Fury. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you can have a really good player on like a really just mediocre team. And that's fine. But like, it just is weird to see Fusion in that light. With some of their how close they've gotten previously in these last couple of years. You look at 2020 and how close they were to some of these finals and obviously almost winning them, right? I don't know if this team can do that as it stands right now. Obviously, Herdy-dur, Overwatch 2, we don't know. Hand wave. I straight up tell you, I don't know if this team can do it. I don't know if I'm not as big on MN3. I'm very ignorant. I will, you know, that's an implicit bias of mine. I don't know much about him. I've seen Carpe with these last few years. I have not been impressed. I like Fury. I think Aim God has some room to kind of reinstate himself as, you know, into the conversation of flex supports. I just don't know. Not how it comes together. That's just so trite, kind of overdone. But I don't know. There's something about this team that just doesn't sit like well with me as like a top contender.
It's because they have a lot of rookies, and for a lot of people, those are unknown factors, and they don't have the veteran, big name talents to back them up, and so people are unsure. That's the reason.
Yeah, that definitely kind of resonates, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Fusion feels like I think like the framing of having it feel Toronto-esque is pretty accurate for me, I will say.
Doesn't it feel that way?
Yeah.
Like a team that like should be positive and should do well, but like you look at the teams that they're competing against, especially in their own region, it's just like, I don't know, man. Do they beat Chengdu? Maybe.
Yeah.
Do they compete with Spark? Probably, but
it's because Fusion are just an unknown factor, because it's hard to quantify where they sit. Like for me, it would be hard to rank, and I know their players a little bit more intimately in terms of what their results are. Like, okay, I didn't see any of Fixa in Uprising Academy, but from his time in T1, because people might not remember this, but he used to be on T1, which is Philly's academy team, which is his link to Philly, by the way. That phase of T1 when he was on it was a pretty bad team. They did really, really poorly. They were one of the worst teams in Contender's career. It wasn't until this last year when they upgraded their roster and moved stuff around that they became one of the top teams instead. So huge 180 turnaround. But Fixa was on the bad version T1. I'm not saying it's his fault, but he, like the rest of that T1 roster that had come and gone, did not impress at all. And Fixa did nothing to really give me a good impression. It's probably an unfair judgment of mine to pass on, because he might have improved drastically, or maybe not even improved, but just had the opportunity to show himself off and his capability on Uprising Academy. But I just didn't see that on Uprising Academy because I never watched them. So there's been a full year, 2 seasons worth of gameplay from Fixa that I just have not caught up on, where easily he could have been a much better player. Even that he could have been mediocre on T1, but then have been exceptional on Uprising Academy, and it would be hard for me to only judge him off his T1 results and performance instead of taking into account everything. So people that, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, Joe, people that were following NA contenders and, you know, did watch Uprising Academy and did see Fixa, I think they had a generally positive reaction to that team. I don't know, maybe specifically Fixa, but I know everyone talks positively about Uprising Academy. So I don't know if that's like a free pass for Fixa. I don't give a lot of free passes, but I'll give people benefit of the doubt. But beyond that,
one last comment, because I think am I wrong in remembering that you kind of were looking at maybe like a second flex support to kind of round out the team?
I mean, I'm only saying that because Fusion are doing an open trial for support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is a couple of things. Is A, they don't have a support lined up in their mind on a short list. So unlike, Sanguinar, unless Sanguinar has been picked up elsewhere, or I think people wanted to see Jexa. I don't know what's going on with Jexa. The second thing it says is that they're not announcing an open trial for the other positions, namely being tank, of which they only had Fury. And if they're willing to get 3 supports, there's no way in hell they only keep 1 tank. They're definitely getting 2 tanks. If you got room to get 3 supports, you got room for 2 tanks. There's no world where there's an option like we can only get 1 more player. Should we get a second tank or a third support? You actually choose 3 supports. That's stupid. No one would do that. So they are getting another tank, but that tank has not been listed onto open trial, which says to me implicitly that they do have a shortlist for tanks, and they got a few people they're trying that they have interest in as an aside. So that's partially exciting. Don't know who they could be looking at, but the list is long. I mean, how old is Bellis? Because he was the T1 Academy player, and Philly this season have been pretty keen on getting a bunch of their academies coming on in. Bellis is 18, so could be the case. Who knows?
Yeah, I think looking at that support position, you mentioned doing some minor legwork in NA. Fixa definitely wasn't a name that jumped out, but one of his teammates who was kind of like low key. I think this guy could be like really, really good. Was Simple, like apparently like the next big. From my memory of the conversation, it was somebody who was like, yeah, man, like this is the guy you want to watch out for. Like this is like Iris kind of vibes. Like not a lot of people know about him, but like expect big things if he ever gets in. So like maybe that could be a lane.
I'm the only person that is not like super big on Simple. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying like I didn't see the hype.
Okay.
Like to me, like Finn is like boom, he's your top player. Like that's the guy you want to look at. When people are talking about Simple. People are talking about Simple. I'm like, how is this? How are people talking about Simple? And then in the same conversation as the real tops like Vigilante Finn. I'm just like, I didn't see it. I personally didn't see it. Maybe again, people like plays like Simple and Fixa and Uprising Academy just had a much better time, and that was just a successful team, and they had a good result there. But I just didn't. I didn't see it in Korea personally. That's my opinion.
That's fair. Yeah, definitely could be a I don't think it's too harmful to say maybe a weaker region got to showcase a little bit more. Let's frame it that way. But yeah, I think that's reasonable. Got to smack some NA nerds
around. Was there a deadline on this open trial? Let me just take a look again. This tweet. Okay, I haven't actually looked at the Google form yet, so I'm gonna open the Google form. And yeah, they ask for all the standard stuff. I don't believe there's a time period listed. Maybe it would come down to when this form becomes unavailable. I don't know if that date is there somewhere, but I find it very interesting that they've gone the open route, because like, what are you really gonna find? Is there really gonna be some sort of hidden talent in an open trial that you're not, who by the way needs to be 18, who's undiscovered? Because here's the other thing is, usually when you do open trials like this, you're looking for like a young player under 18 who's undiscovered. They're like maybe a god on ranked. The thing is, especially in a place like Korea, and they're definitely going to get a Korean talent. We can just rule out any other nationality that's 100% going to be Korean. We know who the up and coming talents are. It's guys like Bliss, right? It's underage guys like that, or Vigilante who's about to be 18. They're known factors. So even these like ranked gods who people don't know about, you know about them pretty quickly, because everyone recruiting for the contenders teams is already scouring underage talented players off of ranked and stuff like that already. So I don't know who they're going to find on an open trial that's not a known quantity. Like, and maybe it's just like, oh, well, we'll just see what happens. But then at the end of the day, you're just going to have the same shortlist you land on anyway. If you actually think about this, if you were functionally to write down a shortlist of every single good support in Korea over the age of 18, and then you did this trial, I would be hard pressed to believe that those two lists weren't exactly the same afterwards.
Yeah.
Like you already know who the best players over 18 and eligible are in Korea already. Like I don't know what you could possibly find in an open trial that you don't already know exists, unless it's like literally some Jonak player who's 18 and no one knows about them. And if that's the case, then let me tell you, every single Contenders Korea team has failed to scout. Their scouting is atrocious if that player exists. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that. I don't believe that's the case because Genji do amazing scouting. They pick up guys like
they got their hands in everything.
Yeah, Genji, Element Mystic, they do fantastic scouting. Like the scouting in Korea, I mean, I think O2 do good scouting as well. These guys do great things. Like they discover fantastic rookies all the time. So you could not convince me that there is a Jonak level player out there that's just completely untapped that no one's seen before. That person doesn't exist. So I don't want to be rude about it, but it feels like an open trial is a bit of a waste of time.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think the thing is, maybe the remaining talent is so meh that you might as well, you know?
Is that not like concerning though?
You just land at the same result. Your shortlist before you go into the trials and your shortlist after the trials is the exact same people.
Yeah.
So like you've literally wasted your time.
It should be, but yeah, I'm not sure. It's I don't know. And that's why I don't feel particularly great about this team at the moment. The thing is,
coaches, I understand coaches because you can get coaches from anywhere. You could, I mean, maybe if they want to get real frisky, they could get a Chinese coach and who maybe has a bit of Korean there. They could get, you know, maybe even an NA coach. I mean, it's possible. I mean, Philly have worked with. I mean, that feels a little bit bad if they don't get Christopher back and then they get some other Western guy to come in. But there could be some coaches work in other regions. Maybe you're a Korean coach working in another region. I don't know. It's more like an open call to be like, hey, we are hiring a coach. If you are currently a free agent or you're on a team and you want to leave your team, please contact us, rather than like, we're going to run some trials for coaches. Maybe they will do that anyway, but it's more like they're announcing they're looking for a coach. Whereas when you announce you're doing an open trial for players, you have to then functionally do these like, you know, fake 6v6 games or whatever, maybe workshop code, whatever you're doing, and actually, you know, do that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just seems a little weird. The coach I get, the player trial I don't.
This is like, it feels like a cry for help. And the question that they're asking is there really nobody better than Jaxi?
I don't think they're going to get a second main support. What they need is a second flex support.
Sorry,
if they're getting
you're right. Yeah. The thing is, okay, here's one thing. He is not eligible at the start of the season, technically speaking. I'm not sure if you would care about this 2 weeks. Fixa, yeah.
Oh my god, why have they done this?
It's just 2 weeks, I think. And maybe they're not even playing the first one.
Right.
But, sorry, like, the thing is, flex support is maybe the role. Maybe, okay, here's the weird one. You ready? Maybe you need a role swap guy. And maybe there is someone like that.
You gotta get a role swap guy?
That's like, who?
Really?
What's more of a gamble, the rookie or the role swap? Just like an archetype.
Bro, it could be the same person. That's
Depends
not mutually exclusive either.
Level. I don't know.
I guess. Like, it feels like such a crapshoot, though. Like, I think there are a lot of people that I think would benefit from role swapping and probably would find a lot of success, like career wise. But like, I don't know if that translates. I don't even know if you can view the same. Like, that might on paper say the same name, but like, that's a different player. I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out, but why would you need an open trial to I mean, I guess maybe that would be the only avenue to see that. I don't know. That is a bizarre one. That's a creative take. I'm not mad at it, but I don't know.
Okay, then the question clearly is there really nobody better than Karif?
Kariva's retired. He's going to the military. He can't play.
Right.
Jesus.
He has a hate.
Yeah, you had to really do Kareev dirty like that.
I mean, I thought this guy had or should have retired the season ago, but apparently he's fucking unbreakable.
God. Why you want to like have a go at the dude for getting a bag? Come on, Guangzhou want to give him a bag. He's gonna take it.
No. I'm not hating on him for taking that bag.
All right, well, you can talk to Eddie Meng about it then. He'll ask you questions about what's going on there.
Or
right to the Guangzhou complaints department about that.
Where was he beforehand?
Toronto.
Oh yeah.
Don't you remember?
Oh,
just went to the shock.
Yeah.
Fuck. Too funny.
You think Twilight can fill these shoes?
Kareev shoes? I don't know, man. That's tough. Rollstar Kareev, baby.
Man.
What a time to be alive.
You guys are too mean about Kareev. I still have fond rose-tinted memories.
I don't hate Kareev. I hate everybody's like weird obsession with him.
Yes.
He is the most
That's exactly the point. Yep.
Bolstered, like larger than life windmill-esque like character in this in our community for the longest time.
It's because he had to retire his number 7 jersey for the whole Valiant We Are 7 thing, only for Crystal to come into the number 7 anyway. So, like a year or two later. All right. So no further comments on Fusion or Fixa. I don't really have more to say about. I wish I watched a bit more NA contenders to get a better gauge.
Yeah.
But I just, again, my excuses. Last year I already did 3 contenders regions and Overwatch League. So cut me some slack. All right.
Yeah.
I already watched more Overwatch generally than 99.99% of people. So y'all can cut me some slack. That aside, another player. This one's a rumored player. So this is not a player announcement, but Halo dropped a bit of a leak today. He dropped a real fatty leak. XC to Valiant. Holy Jesus Christ. I don't know how to react to that. So give me a second to think about it and you guys can go first.
It is bizarre. Like initial things are like, oh cool, XC found a home, but it's with Dia on the Valiant.
And Joe, we know they have beef, so they can't. No, they know.
Yeah, right. Like
trying to figure out why you specify Dia there. Like,
no, it's just like they feel kind of like the same player. Do they not?
You talking about a role? Yeah. Well,
yeah. And
how's that different?
It's not like a.
How's that different from Spark getting Pineapple Shy or
at all?
Dallas getting Gurio and Edison, and or what other team has 4 DPS?
I guess it just in my mind, like the way that I saw this team filtering out was different. I guess there's nothing wrong with going for like, and you're seeing this, like you're saying with other teams where you're opting for a double hit scan instead of like a safer, not even a safer base, but like a hit scan, a flex, and another flex rather than like 2 hit scans and a flex. I don't know. I don't hate it. It's mostly positive. I think I'm with you in trying to understand it. As boring as it is, I do kind of trust No Hill, so I'm willing to wait and see. But is it a hit scan preference for him? Does he think that like hit scan's just going to be really good in Overwatch 2 and he wants him like a dynamic core to pull from? Maybe, I don't know.
I think he's just got a bit of extra budget, and he's like, "Yo, I can flex and afford an extra player on the DPS if I want."
That would be.
And he's just gone ahead and done it. It's the only reason it's strange is because the order of operations, you'd expect them to pick up a tank and announce the tank officially. We know Wu Kiao is like kind of half rumored to be their tank player, at least a substitute tank player, by what we know. But that still means that they need another tank player to. Because Wu Kiao is not going to be a starter. He's meant to be coaching and playing as a backup in the tank position, which means somebody else has to start. But even if Wu Kiao was a starter, you would still want a second tank anyway, because like every other team is going 2 tanks just to hedge their bets, because you don't know who's going to be the good tanker. You don't want to be stuck as that team that didn't have the options for tanks, and now you're screwed. So they've kind of done things in a weird order. That doesn't mean that behind the scenes they don't have other deals or negotiations happening. Like, it could very well be that Valiant have actually locked down another tank already, but they just haven't signed it yet. They just haven't gone through all the legal processes, but they happen to lock down XE afterwards. But for whatever reason, that's just expedited, or I don't know. Maybe they haven't finished trialing tanks, but they're just pretty happy with XE. We all know that XE was very keen to come back to the league. He made it very publicly known that he wanted another attempt. He felt like he was still good enough. No Hill noticed that, seemed to agree. But now Valiant have 4 DPSs. My questions go towards not in the sense of how they're building the roster, but more in the sense of like how have they suddenly just got this money to have a huge roster? Because 4 DPSs plus Coldest plus, do they have a main support yet? Or am I?
I don't remember. So, I think there's maybe some rumors about them. But.
So anyway, 4 DPSs, 2 supports, 36 players, 2 tanks means they're going 8 players, and this is assuming they don't go for like a third support or anything. So they're definitely, and I said they were going. So Linkser has been rumored. That's right, we talked about it last week. Totally forgot. Linkser has been rumored to be the other support for the LA Valiant. But the point is, in terms of roster size, we're basically guaranteeing 8 players now, because you need 2 supports. If you don't want to be stupid, you need 2 tanks as well, and they've decided to go 4 DPS. Whereas I had assumed that the Valiant strategy was going to be 7 players, not 8. And now more than ever, if you're a team like Fusion and NYXL, again, if Valiant are going 8 players, what are you doing with your team?
Yeah.
It is strange. Yeah. It feels like this team was supposed to be lean and mean, and it's turning out to be a little bit thicker than I think we expected. Yeah.
Lean and mean to thick and mean.
And I'm
just
not
mean with a bit more backbone.
It is definitely mean. It looks good. Like, in a weird way, I'm kind of excited to see the Valiant not just be a meme team again. If obviously reports go as they, should. Yeah, it seems like they're again genuinely gonna be like a pretty good team.
The only report that went awry was the Easy Han to Houston report, right? Was that an official report?
I think it was like, hey, they are talking.
Okay, so it wasn't like a Halo certified leak. It was more like
no sources.
They were just having some chit chats. No one had gone back for the Netflix and chill yet. So Valiant, now looking at this team, you have to come to terms with the fact that one of Dia or XE is probably going to be benched. Unless we see a double hit scan meta, one of these guys is going to be benched. Yep. Unlucky.
Little bit. But you've got a lot to pull from. So that only serves to benefit, I think, everybody. If we the less bad teams, the better for everybody. I'll say that. So if it comes at the cost of somebody not seeing a ton of play time, kind of okay with that.
And look, every time XE doesn't want to play Ashe, Dia can step up to the plate, so that works as well.
There you go.
And we can do that. In any time being every time, so that's fine. They still got 2 flex DPSs. I still question innovations here a little bit, but Becky can cover most of the things they need.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean it's a good pickup. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. Excited to see it. I like the more that this kind of rolls out, the more that I'm excited to get into the season.
Yeah. I feel like XE is exciting. I think generally like more optionality is better. I would have liked I'm not sure. I'm skeptical what this means, right? Like, does this just mean you are misallocating resources, or does this mean you're having more resources than we thought, and now you're taking advantage of that? But yeah, I don't know. I don't hate where this is shaping up.
I don't think No Hill's dumb. The only way this could be misallocation of resources is if like he's only allowed to get 7 players, and instead of getting a second tank, he's like, I'm gonna get another DPS. That would be misallocation, but I don't think No Hill's stupid enough to do that because he's pretty well regarded as a coach who knows how to win and knows how to build a team.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also something to be said about. Do you ever feel like some players are just so talented that you could easily see them like we're not transitioning roles per se, right? Like it's not like it's probably not going to be as hard to get used to a new role in Overwatch 2 in the transition of that as like that's the best opportunity to do so, right? So
are you dusting off the old XE Element Mystic jersey and throwing him on an occasional Zenyatta? Is that what you're asking me?
I mean that, or like it sounds like the whistling is that Prophet is, for instance, going to take on tank duties, right? Like he's playing a ton of Zarya at the moment on the Korean ladder, and they've hinted, like Arnold has hinted towards that possibility. I think they are hyper talented people that could have probably succeeded in just about anything role in Overwatch.
Can I be real? No. There's a secondary factor to that, and that is that Prophet is the Echo player, and Echo players are probably going to have... They need to practice tank anyway, because they're copying tanks all the time as the Echo ultimate. And as it stands, as far as everyone's aware, and to be fair, I mean, this can change at any point because we just don't have the info yet, but if you copy a tank as Echo in current Overwatch 2, you just get like a mega buff tank fully copied. Really? So it is like, I'm not going to say it's broken AF, but it's very clear that if you are not copying the tank, you're just simply not using the ultimate correctly. Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense for DPS players, flex DPS players, if you're the Echo player, to practice tank. Which, by the way, just leads, as an aside point, contributes further to my statement that flex DPS really are the most talented players in the entire game and have the most difficult and demanding expectations of them. The fact that these guys have to fucking practice tank to play DPS is ridiculous, but you know, it's what they got to do.
Yeah.
Yep. It's possible though. I mean, to your point, Yiska, like maybe there are some role swaps. Maybe there are, you know, players that we think are doing one thing when their roles are a little bit more fluid than what we know thus far. Kind of have to just wait and see.
Yep.
I'm excited if that's the case. I think that'd be a really cool way to allocate and use your bench. But I don't know.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Discussion about XC aside, I think we're all unanimous on that. This is a good pickup for Valiant, assuming they round out the rest of the team in a smart fashion like we expect them to. And also, you know, congrats to XC for landing a team after what was looking like a pretty dire off-season. He finally got a contract signed in front of him. So, well, at least that's what the rumor says. So we're pending an official announcement. Last section of the show today, and
it's a time.
Wow, I mean, we've actually, this has been the most streamlined episode ever because we've actually not gone on huge tangents for super long amounts of time. I think we just had like very specific topics that we just stuck to. Also, probably helped that I didn't talk at all during the Sideshow Bren segment. I just kind of let you guys have it, and so that was probably shorter than it would have been if I had also come in. But yeah, we can do a few questions for Off the Fence if those are available. Joe,
yes,
your favorite, your time,
my baby
to shine.
The resident fence sitter gets to sit on the fence and scream at two young men to pick a side.
Get off the lawn.
Oh. Yeah, right. I mean, sort of. So yes, welcome to Get Off the Fence. If you would like to have your question added to my magical list of questions, you can go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Any form of patronage is welcome. Once you connect to our Discord to your Patreon account, you can come to our Discord, leave a question. I will add it to the list. It will get answered eventually. And yeah, please do so. We appreciate everybody. And these are kind of fun to, you know, tease in our heads and you know, think about. So not only do you get to, help support us, which we're ever so thankful for. But we also get to, indulge in some fun little questions like, Das Chunk comes in with a question from our Discord. They ask, Overwatch 1 struggled for years to find a working competitive game design, from no hero limits to role lock, and still needing another fundamental change to get to 5v5. Their question is, get off the fence. Overwatch 2 will establish a solid and long-lasting formula within 1 year of the release of an open beta. So within 1 year, do you think that this lasts?
Oh,
Do you think they get it right?
who is this question for first?
Since you spoke up, we'll go with you.
Yo, no way anyone believes this, dude. No, and I'm not sure if they actually, if they want to make this a live service game, that's not even desirable depending on what you mean, right? So I think you won't get away without changing the game fundamentally, or not fundamentally, but in significant ways every once in a while. I don't think changes to the game just in terms of hero balance and hero rotation and in the meta keeps the thing fresh. I think you need to inject content that is more widespreading, whether that's a new game mode or whatever it is, and those necessarily inject a level of difference into the formula that cannot be compared to the evergreenness of CSGO, right? Or Counter-Strike, or I mean, okay, if you're asking, can Overwatch reach the rigidity of League of Legends, which is still a gigantic ship of Theseus, but we have 5 lanes, we have the roles figured out. Yes, we have some weird rotations in terms of the lanes, so that became sort of like this liquid thing where, like, the top bottom situation was up for interpretation. So if you mean that level of rigidity, even 1 year is still cutting. Like, I feel like 5v5 is such a radical departure, unlike we've ever seen. I think it's the biggest one we've had yet. It would very much surprise me, given the limited time that we have, if we nailed it, and if we did, it would be by sheer luck. Because let's be honest, 5v5 will be played. Pros will get to that game. They will play that very differently than the playtesters.
Sure.
In a year, the level of play of those people playing the Overwatch League will be like Masters tier, or a Grandmasters tier level, at least. So by then, the meta is sophisticated enough that people are exploiting similar differences, where it now starts trickling down to the general player base, and then you got to change it up again in order to find what it is, right? What you're looking for. The reason that CS can be rigid is because several generations of players have grinded away at this game and perfected it to a level. So the Nash equilibrium, if you want. So Nash equilibrium is the theoretically possible point of perfect play. Players in CS are way closer to the understanding or finding the Nash equilibrium than we are in Overwatch, right? And therefore, that is required in my mind to be a hedge against frequent changes that require them. Because as you approach the Nash equilibrium, you have a clearer understanding of what the game is and what needs to change. And as we approach that with a completely new mode mode of seeing things, everything needs to be reevaluated once again. And with us now once again moving further away from the Nash equilibrium, I think there's no way we will find out what we need to know within a year. And I'm not even sure if it's a desirable thing. Because for all we know, after Overwatch 2, there's Overwatch 3. We need some novelty there in order to keep people around. I think rigidity and evergreenness is not even a goal for a game in 2022. Sorry.
All right, AVRL. It seems like Yiska does not think it's possible, but do you think it's possible?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Should I explain?
I would love to hear why.
It's not even just like, is it possible? It's like, no, I think it's confirmed. It's like a hard yes. It's not even like a speculative yes. It's like for me, it's a hard yes because fun fact, Team 4 isn't just rocking around. It's like, hey, it's been another year. Should we do another random fundamental change? Yeah, let's get the day, get the roulette board out. Well, which one is? Oh, you put it into a hat. It's just what it out. It's like, throw in a basketball in the game now, and now we've got to shoot hoops. That's the whole. That's the entire game.
Next.
That's not what happens. They're actually actively looking for like the best possible final form of the game, and that's not about just randomly throwing just a random change at any point. It's not like someone looks at a clock like, oh, it's time to do the next change. It simply doesn't work like that. And I think this is the final change. Well, this should be the final change because I personally cannot see any other major fundamental shifts that need to happen to the game. Obviously, I haven't seen Overwatch 2 yet. Well, I haven't seen enough of it yet. I have to play it. I have to analyze it myself, and I have to look at it and just see what else needs to change. I would only speculate the only possible fundamental change I still want in the game is more carry potential on DPSs, and especially less impact from tanks, ideally. Sorry, tank players. And just more capability of showing off pop-off moments. But that can just be achieved through game balancing. Like, none of what I just said is like a fundamental change to the game. And when we look back at stuff like no hero limits and 2-2-2, those are all very important and necessary moves that I actually think are super predictable. For example, no hero limits, that should have shipped with the game. The fact that they had to add that in later is a joke. Like, I could have told you from beta that needed to be in release day one of the game. As someone that played TF2 and understands, like, you know, how class-based shooters works. You know, again, and even then, like in TF2, you can play like 7, 8, 9 soldiers and scouts if you want. But I look at a game like Overwatch, I'm like, there's zero chance you can balance this game if everyone can just go D.Va anytime they want, and you have 6 D.Vas on the field, all just endlessly stalling, or like 6 Winstons who can just layer shields and bubbles on top of each other. It's ridiculous. Like, the game is like it's like, it's not fun. I don't think it's like interesting or fun when you have these no limits in play. And if you would have played no limits now, the novelty will last like an hour at the most. And you're like, this is just stupid. This is so stupid that this is so crazy like this. So I don't think it should have been that difficult to work out that was never going to be the final form of the game. That there's never going to be good. 2-2-2 is another thing that you could have predicted early on. In fact, it was quite a requested feature. I remember seeing plenty of comments early on. I remember Slash was going off about it as well. He's like, this game needs to have a more rigid, like, you know, first of all, queue system to help you to, like, so you can actually get into consistent games, but also a game that's consistent in its gameplay, where it's not just 5 DPS and 1 support in one game, and then it's like 4 tanks and, you know, 2 supports in the next or something stupid like that. There needs to be some level of consistency. These are all very noticed changes that we could have all predicted, that I look back and I'm like, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I fully agreed with the early takes that we should have moved to 2-2-2, and that's something that we should have moved towards, and eventually we did. And then as far as 5v5 goes, I initially, and this is the thing, was Yiska, you were the first, or one of the first people that said, hey, it looks like there's a possibility with 5v5, because you looked at the footage and you're like, I'm noticing only 1 tank here. And I remember I remember I was like, oh, that sounds a bit ridiculous, because why would we play 5v5? It seems like Overwatch is fundamentally meant to be 6v6. So I'll cop the L on that one and say, like, I didn't predict the 5v5. In fact, I was kind of opposed to it. But looking back on it now, 5v5 also ticks off a bunch of boxes on my list in terms of things that need to be changed or improved in the game for the game to be in the place where I think it will and can succeed the most especially as a competitive title, which is a game that's less focused around tank play, more focused around DPS play and pop-off moments from those DPS mechanics, and more capability of showing off your carry potential and just having a more lethal game in general. No, that doesn't mean we're playing fucking Valorant now, but it means we're playing an Overwatch game that's a little bit more lethal than the current Overwatch game. That's all I'm asking for. So we don't have to be hyperbolic and like pretend it's suddenly Counter-Strike just because DPS do more damage or something. It's like, no, it can still be Overwatch just as a faster, more deadly game. So to achieve that, 5v5 moves in that direction. I didn't predict that 5v5 would have been my initial thought. I would have just initially said that, oh, we can just rebalance the heroes and fix these numbers and we'll get there. It just so happened that 5v5 achieves the same goals that I wanted through a different pathway, which is why I'm like, well, that's a really good fundamental change. So when I look forward of how many problems that I think is still, here's actually one problem that I think is still exists in the game. Two of them, actually, they're both related. One is healing. I think healing is still a major issue in the game, and healing in combat healing needs to be significantly reduced. And outer combat healing should be the main focus of healing. I don't think pocketing is a good mechanic in this game. Secondary to that is damage output needs to be more standardized. I think headshots should not be available for the vast majority of the roster. Headshots should be very specific to certain hit scan heroes, or maybe certain projectile heroes like Hanzo for certain abilities and certain shots. But for the most part, like I don't think Tracer should be able to headshot, for example, as just a straight up example. I don't want to get too deep because that's a long discussion. I spent
and
hours.
You don't think the game will change, dude? If you think that is necessary?
Well, this is what I'm saying. It's like these are the fundamental changes, but you adjust numbers. You just change. You go into your fucking spreadsheet and you just like type in a different number than the one that's there. Like these changes are not as big as making the game 5v5. So I don't classify it as a fundamental change. Depends what your definition of a fundamental change is. But if you want to define it that way, okay, then the answer is there's only one more fundamental change after 5v5 that I can foresee, even if you want to define it that way. But I don't think there's, to me, for my standard of what I think the game should be, there's nothing beyond that.
I think
that's just what I think.
I think for one that's like feels obvious. So the problem where I could see major changes coming in, right? It's like we're playing this, and part of the decisions making, presumably, was how the game plays and how people interact with the game. So one of the issues was tank queue, like how we have to rediscover how fun the roles are for everyone. And if they are not fun, then we need to fundamentally change stuff in order to get there, right? So that's one of the changes that I could foresee. I think ultimates are
just shift the numbers. You just go into your spreadsheet and change the number. Like
that doesn't change fun. Right? Like even, and I think, like, for instance, if you say no headshots for Tracer, I think
no headshots for like 90%. I just use Tracer as an example. 90% of the heroes should be Zarya. Zarya can't headshot. That should be 90% of the heroes, in my opinion.
I think that's when I stopped playing
damage
Overwatch.
Output. Huh?
Then it's
again.
Then I stopped playing Overwatch because the skill aspect is so diminished. Like then you're
wrong. No, incorrect. Because now you actually have you make more direct and distinguished decisions based on your threat and your understanding of the enemy threat level, whereas current Overwatch is so like it's so all over the place in like what is maximum possible damage output and what is minimum possible damage output. The difference between hitting all headshots and hitting no headshots is 100% damage, double damage, literally.
Yes, but
it's ridiculous.
Want the skill aspect to be the modifier on strategy. Like you want your strategy to be completely invalidated by professional skill.
Incorrect.
That is the most. That is inherently the most interesting viewership aspect of CS:GO in esports at all. If you have a strategy that rigidly works in League of Legends, but Uzi is able to outvane someone, or like in CS, a lineup should not be held, but fucking simple goes off. That is esports, nothing else.
Incorrect. So why you're wrong about that is because that works for those games. What works for Overwatch, in my opinion, is it's an arena shooter, and you need to lean further into arena shooter mechanics and not into tactical shooter or any other type of shooter mechanics in terms of burst damage. Burst damage is one of the banes of this game, as well as burst healing. Burst damage is ridiculous. It shouldn't be in this game. And where the skill aspect comes through, because here's the problem: you are equating skill to your ability to burst damage correctly. That's what you're equating skill to.
Yes.
I am equating skill to consistency of output of damage over a longer period of time.
Body shots are easy as shit.
You need to correctly track a player over a certain period of time and hit a large percentage of shots. It's not about hitting that first. So we're not talking about Counter-Strike here. It's not about hitting the first shot on a headshot and boom, done. You're finished with it. It's about I need to track 30 bullets where 25 out of the 30 bullets needs to hit a target for me to get this kill. Headshots have no factor. It is my pure tracking ability to get there. And you might counter argue and be like, well, you can still have headshots in there, and then you can still track on the headshots as well. I just think that creates a really inconsistent damage portfolio that is not healthy for gameplay, because it feeds into burst damage, and burst damage creates a lot of problems in terms of balancing for this game. And also, burst damage creates power creep and healing, and that's why healing and burst damage have been fucking at each other's throats in this fucking evolutionary war since the beginning of Overwatch. It's a huge problem in this game, massive problem in my opinion. So the way you get rid of that is both need to be addressed. Both damage output and both healing need to be majorly addressed. Both need to be toned down to an acceptable level and a consistent level that makes the gameplay a lot more, again, I'll use the word, consistent in what your expectations are, because there shouldn't be a case where you walk up to somebody and they hit 100% headshots, you just instantly get melted. It's like, and then in a second case where like they hit 100% body shots and it's a completely different experience. Like coming from TF2 into Overwatch and having that as my experience was unbelievable. It's just like, how have we gone backwards in arena shooters? It's just like, what are you an arena shooter or are you trying to be CS? Like pick one, because you're not really fulfilling either if you're in this fucking middle ground here.
Dude,
it's ridiculous.
The problem is, this is like this made sense in 2004 when not every cracked kid has perfect tracking on body. Like aim mechanics on down to masters would have 80% body tracking or upwards. The difference between the best aimers and the worst of like that lower threshold would be basically indistinguishable. I think I could do that. Like
do what?
Nobody misses beams on Zarya, man. There's no damage difference on left click on people who can have held a mouse for 5 years to like profit. Just isn't.
Are you aware of like? Depends. What are you Are you tracking a fucking Ryan standing there doing nothing? Or are you trying to track a Tracer blinking around you against you double jumping and shit? Like it's very different depending on the target you're actually shooting at and their movement mechanics and their ability to outmove you. Like it's not like, I mean, you think it's easy to play like an AIM Labs training course for tracking and just like see what you get, like see how it is. It's not that easy. If it's fucking that easy, everyone would. Zarya would be the best hero, and everyone would be the fucking monster. Everyone would be the best. Everyone would be Decay from 2020.
But
wouldn't they?
That wasn't the impressive. Tracking with beams is not the impressive part about Zarya. Right clicks are
pretty damn important part.
Like I give you Tracer or like models are hard to hit, but even Lucius pressing it with how you could argue maybe you would have to make beam less forgiving.
Track a Valkyrie Mercy flying around you for me, and tell me if that's easy to track.
That's because
I'll find you professional players. I'll find you players that will say that that's one of the hardest things to ever hit in any FPS game in history.
But in order to kill her, because like if you have a Valkyrie Mercy, it's hard to out DPS that, especially if a second like support is in the game, because you basically need to perma headshot, right?
It's the literal 3-dimensional movement in air, and it's pretty fast as well. And by the way, Overwatch, here's the thing you need to remember: Overwatch is a game in terms of movement. It is not like other FPS games where there is ramp up and ramp down in speed. You literally hit 100% of your movement speed as soon as you press any directional button, which means AD movements and strafing in this game is unreal. Right?
Sure.
In other games, I'm on the same page as you. Tracking is probably easy in those games because you can't just 80-80 spam and have huge success, because when you change directions, you have to slow down, then speed back up again. In Overwatch, that doesn't exist. You are instantly at maximum speed pretty much as soon as you press another button, which is why tracking in Overwatch is actually kind of hard. It's pretty hard.
Not to completely interject, I do think that we're having a very, fruitful discussion, but I'm going to probably cut in and probably say final comments on this question in particular, not to potentially derail, but back to you guys.
Like, what I understand, like, there are a lot of levers to turn if you think about it. Like, yes, Tracer is very likely to be much harder to hit, even though I think, I don't know, like, it really doesn't seem that challenging, especially like
also, Zarya's left click is a huge hitbox. Just saying.
Yeah, but even like...
Do that on Soldier. Do the same shit on Soldier.
Yeah, and everyone was able to in 2016. Everyone was perfect at it, yeah.
Bullshit. At what? Shooting a tank?
No,
what are they
like
shooting?
I don't know, like a jumping Zenyatta is not hard to track. Or like...
are you talking about Zenyatta? The fuck? Zenyatta is like one of the slowest... Like most volatile, 2016. Zenyatta had 150 HP in 2016.
Right, but that's the normal character. That's basically every character is like this. Like a let's say, for instance, what would be a different? Let's say, okay, a dashing Genji, of course, is much harder to track, right, during the dash. But like even a grappling hook Widow in 3-dimensional space, I would expect everyone in Grandmasters to have upwards of probably 85% body hit somewhere. If it all is the same, like the impressive
travels in a single linear line.
No, in 3-dimensional space, depending on the.
She's still traveling in a completely linear line. Slowly compared to dash.
Right, but like this, the movement of the jiggle is so forgiving if you aim center mass, right? Like you can be on the middle of the model of most characters, and then you have like 0.3 seconds in order to react until the target changes direction, and you even have to adjust your aim in order to not hit body anymore.
What you're saying simply doesn't make sense, because if what you said was true, Tracer would be unplayable and she would be never in the meta. Because, like, apparently you think she's easy to hit. So Tracer would not be the dominant force that is completely dominated every single meta.
Tracer is a notable exception of that, but because of the instantaneous... You said she's
easy to hit, though.
Yes, she is easy to body hit, for sure. And because, like, you have recall and low damage that isn't headshot, which is challenging, is pretty easy to recall and for Tracer to get out. That is the thing that keeps Tracer survivability high, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, McCree double headshotting Tracer is just going to get rid of her, but everyone can perma body shot Tracers as McCree, right?
No, they really can't. They really can't. I think you're highly overestimating people's abilities in this game.
I feel like Recry, like, already in 2016, the impressive part about tracking wasn't really about body shots. Everyone could do that back then with Soldier. The impressive part was tracking headshots, like Defiant did back then. That was when Soldier was nuts. Wasn't that the ability to track bodies was hard, right? I don't know. I feel like it, and I think maybe
I don't think that's a good compromise for having like a really inconsistent game that creates incredible balancing problems that obviously cannot be solved by the current balancing team, or maybe by any balancing team. And generally like, yeah, maybe it's fun, and maybe it's fun for the person that's doing it, and maybe it's fun to watch, but it is a dog shit like thing to have happen to you, like when you're on the receiving end. It's just kind of bull. I don't know. But I don't think it's a good gameplay experience.
This scenario you're describing, it feels like it is Tug of War meets Excel, the game. Meaning, like if there's no high variance in damage output, let's say the difference between like someone, let's entertain that tracking is hard and some people just hit 60% and that the top players hit 80%. That damage difference is not as significant as to really offset. Like the time to kill would necessarily adjust to that. You would play like effective damage being like the damage you deal minus the healing that is coming in, would force like a tug of war type of scenario where at snail's pace you are now out damaging the opponent while the healer heals. And I mean, that's not a game that anyone wants to play 20 and 20.
We're playing that game right now.
No, we're not. We're playing bursty shit that creates opportunities in situations, right?
You're playing a game now that literally requires you to burst because healing is that strong. Right. That's regular tracking. Like healing is so strong now that even if you were tracking with 100% headshots, you might not kill somebody. It's that ridiculous.
Yes.
So there's one problem. It's like you would adjust so many. We can't look at this in a vacuum either and just be like, oh, so if you get rid of headshots now, then you just do only body shot damage. It's pretty bad. You would do some sort of middle ground of damage that makes up for it, so that your time to kill averages down to about the same. So instead of having like an extreme end of time to kill, of it being low or high, you have a standardized time to kill that if you were hitting all your correct shots with a high percentage, this would be your time to kill. So, yeah, the damage in my mind would be standardized somewhere in the middle. It'd be like, let's just say soldier damage is 20, headshot damage is 40. So now you only body shot and your damage is 30, as an example.
Right. I'm gonna call an audible. I'm gonna say final comments, and we're gonna get to the next question.
Hey, you said final comments about half an hour ago, and we still haven't finished.
Yeah, you guys, sometimes the assignment, the instructions aren't necessarily super clear. Dick stuck in toaster.
All I'm saying is like I've played arena shooters my whole life, and I know that includes like the Quakes, the Unreals, the TF2s. Like I've seen what works for an arena shooter and what like is rewarding an arena shooter, and there's certain mechanics in this game that it's trying to be something it's not. It's trying to be like, oh, we're a arena shooter, but also we're Counter-Strike. It's like, well, you're not. Which one? Which one really are you?
I would say there's zero successful arena shooters that still work in 2022, and there's a reason for that. And most of it is
because most of them are 1v1. Because most of them are 1v1 games, or a game that came out 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. That's the reason.
Why is that? Is everyone stupid developing games?
Well, Valve make them, so you tell me the answer to that.
How do they make them?
Valve don't know how to make games that have the number 3 in them, so you let me know if they're stupid developers or not. I mean, 1v1 games is proven to not be super popular as far as esports goes, so that's a problem. Yeah, I mean, very easy to answer those questions for you.
I think there's basically no ground that justification you just mentioned explains.
Also, by the way,
an absolute incompetence of an industry.
Boys, I think we're just at a fork in the road. I think we're just not gonna, if somebody wants to bring this up again, we could definitely, have a whole segment tied to this. But I think we are gonna move on. I think there are some more lighthearted questions. I think can ease some of the tension.
I just don't think we have that much more to go to reach a final state of the game. It's like, again, to come back to the original, it's like the devs aren't just having a fucking laugh and having a piss take. I hope they're not. Like they're trying to reach an end goal as well. As like here's what the best version of the game can be.
Correct.
And sometimes they figure out new stuff that gets them closer to that, but I don't think there's that many fundamental changes we need. And I think people have this like weird idea of like, oh, we're just randomly doing fundamental changes every other year. I'm like, that's just not true.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to predict at this point. It could very well be like we get into Overwatch 2 and it plays very well. I think like game development is probably usually in dialogue with the player base, and you probably need a ton of footage and those people to also actually get at the equilibrium state where where the diminishing returns of them getting better slows down significantly or goes up significantly, where the game gets more rigid in how it's played, and then that's the level. And if that game actually doesn't require changes, you got your golden formula, right?
All right. Fair play. I think to try to synthesize a little bit, I think a lot of the disagreement came on what defined or what the definition was on formula, what that means for either party. So I think I think both sides have said their piece. Here's a quick little fun one to kind of chew on. From Kasha67. Hopefully, this answers your question. In a recent Plat Chat episode, the crew debated the greatest flex supports to play Overwatch 1, and Reinforce included Unko on that list, citing great potential that was otherwise squandered due to his attitude and the teams that he played with. Looking back, who would you say was the biggest letdown in terms of hype/potential? And if you could rewrite history, which team do you feel like they could have fit into to possibly live out those lofty expectations? AVRL, we're going to send this to you. What kind of player, a little bit overhyped, didn't miss?
Okay. And I think NYXL is fine. He was just too young.
Okay, so you would have rather seen him.
Age screwed him. He peaked super early. Age screwed him. There might have been some internal stuff that affected his development, because I think other young players can still maintain that growth and then debut in the Overwatch League and still be dominant. We've seen that with most rookies that coming through, especially the ones that win Rookie of the Year or get close to and get nominated. Flowers just a special case, but he popped off extremely hard and had a super high, only to, not realize that again for various reasons. I don't know. I almost start to think that maybe even if he was old enough and he did debut in the Overwatch League, that could have just happened anyway. He could have just fallen off because some other factors contributed to that, because we've seen too many other rookies come through and succeed for to really blame it on Flowers' age anymore. That's my take.
I think Flowers is the big pick, right?
Okay.
I think I agree with that, but I would like, just to keep it interesting, I must say Decay. So, all right. I think Decay should be what Fleda is.
Okay, sure.
And maybe better. I think fundamentally Decay has more talent than Fleda. I think Decay had some pretty bad luck when he got into the game in terms of Overwatch League with the meta. Was pretty decent, right? But like, it's hard to stand out there, even though he was okay. And then he just like, be it choice of teams, be it not impacting culture positively, arguably sometimes negatively, depending on what their teammates said and how much you want to give credence to that. But man, like, I feel like Decay should be in the GOAT discussion, and he's nowhere close, right? He hasn't won shit. And a player of that skill set, probably in terms of sheer talent, a top 5 talent of all time, but he has nothing to show for it. So I think that's like, if you want to bend the question a little bit, then Decay fits there.
And he also fluctuates in his talent as well. I feel like his absolute peaks, like he should be in that. He had, at his absolute peaks, he's a good enough player to enter that kind of discussion, hypothetically. But then you see some of his lows, and it could be caused by other issues like maybe his teammates or his team in general or his attitude and some other factor. But I don't even think Decay's consistent, and that's one of his weaknesses as well. Where you have a player with high highs and just otherwise beyond that, like he can also just be mediocre.
Yeah. Fair play. Yiska, any rebuttal there?
No, I think that adds nicely to it. What I will say is there's probably others like him. I'm not sure, like, who are you at this point? It's like, yeah, that kid was probably only ever going to be good at Overwatch in this one set of meta. And now everyone would probably also be able to do what he does at Genji while he is sort of hard-capped at that. Like, he was never going to become better than he was in Apex Season 2. He held it pretty high during Fusion Uni. But man, has he not landed in Overwatch League whatsoever, right? So that's like a name that people probably want to bring up. I think this guy's skill set is just like a relic of a time where Genji was still good, and even there, I'm not sure that others aren't just like straight up better. Like, for instance, Haksal very clearly wasn't capped by just Genji. Or even his Genji ability became much better, right? I think Who Are You doesn't even really turn heads on Genji anymore, proven by the fact that he wasn't actually the mainstay when Genji was in the meta for NYXL. So I think that's a name that you want to instinctively bring up, but probably doesn't fit.
Another honorable mention is actually Taimu, who at one stage was maybe the best hit scan in the world. Like his peaks on hit scan were unbelievable. Like you go back to his Apex clips, he's hitting unbelievable shots. Like shots of the caliber of any top level FPS player in any game that exists in FPS. Like unreal shots, like mechanically speaking. And then for whatever reason, I mean, he's listed some of the reasons himself. He's kind of spoken out about it. He lost confidence, and you know, Dallas went doing super great as a team as well. Internal issues, blah 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 blah. Everything kind of affects him, and then there was a whole Taimu Winston period as well. It's just all this BS, and he never got back to form. Some of it is maybe self-limitations mentally. I think, you know, he's a very emotional type of player, but I would say that, you know, that is definitely a player that at his absolute peak was, I was going to say one of the best, but I want to say, like, at his absolute peak, he might have just been the best player in the world, especially definitely on hit scan, but maybe just generally as well. And he had a pretty sharp decline. And as a player that, you know, was on a really good team, like NVS dominated, but just Overwatch League just wasn't it.
Yeah, I think in that same vein, I think Saya Play is probably also a name people could mention, where it felt like, I mean, he did carry bodies at one point, and then he sort of like just like walked into the darkness and never to be seen again, right? And that guy also had like a very distinguished skill set that unfortunately he never had the teams to show. Like, part of me would have liked to have seen him be like the fundamental guy on the S3 Mayhem, but the Mayhem, I think the meta was hard, and like probably his mental was hard at that time. Sort of like the 0.5 version of that is Logic's, ironically, where you could also say, like, at least in Season 1, Season 2, probably this guy's potential was wasted. But yeah, those are the names that sort of pop into my mind. I'm sure there's probably other guys as well.
Fair play. This one I think is kind of fun. This is from Rex Zane. He poses a hypothetical to the both of you, whom I'm kind of rewriting so that it's a little bit more inclusive. Rex Zane asks for both of you to get off the fence to apparently save me. I've been kidnapped. I'm held at gunpoint and will be shot. The both of you can only save me by fulfilling one of the following tasks. You must either watch the Houston-Boston Map 7 game from February 2020 Week 3, which I think is the the 7-game set, the toilet bowl. Or you have to watch that, or you have to watch the Overwatch 2 2021 Grand Finals reveal stream and subsequent show matches. Which do you choose? Get off the fence.
You're getting ice, dude. I'm shooting you myself.
Okay. There's one answer, AVRL. Do I live in your world?
I don't mind watching the toilet bowl. I remember I actually watched that on stream even. So I mean that's a fun game if you remove any expectations of wanting to see high level Overwatch and you just want to see like a train wreck. It's fun. It's like it's no different than watching a lot of reality TV where you're just there to see the train wreck.
Yeah.
Right? And that's exciting and entertaining. So
it is
I have no issues with watching the toilet bowl at all.
Yeah, I think that's the lesser evil for sure. Because I still haven't watched that reveal stream for sure. And I won't watch it at your funeral either, Joe.
I wouldn't have it any other way. So if you out there in the universe want these two knuckleheads to debate your question, you can go to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Any tier of patronage can drop a question in our Discord, and I will add it to the list. Like I did Rexane, Kasha67, and who was it? Das Chunk. So if you would like to do that, please do so. We'd appreciate the support. And that's all from me. AVRL, the floor is yours.
And hopefully you ask a question where we can just spend like a full hour on one question. Like, oh my god, this is just like a really deep question that can just go either which way.
We've got some more in here. We've got quite a few to really break down and digest, and it's just a matter of time before we really get into some of these.
Oh man, I got 4 cow stomachs worth of digestion. You know, I can really slowly get through. I'm like I can be like the Sarlacc pit, man. 1,000 years of digestion. So, still thought it was quite cool how they managed to get Boba Fett out of there. I was like, well, how are they going to get him out of there? But I was like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense. Actually does make sense. Okay, that's all our topics. We actually still went over to it, so we actually still did like a normal 2.5 kind of episode, even though things were pretty quick to start with. We're not going to have the earnings call come through by the time the next episode comes in anyway. I don't actually know if I'm going to be here for the next episode, but I might be, I might not be. It depends if I've got a clash or not. So really what we're waiting for is going to be that earnings call whenever that ends up happening. Do they release a new date for that? Did they kind of say when they've rescheduled that to or not?
I'm not sure.
No, but I think it's like whatever information we would have been forced to get, I assume will just be like given some time to breathe. I think, I mean, at the latest, we got to find out something soon in terms of the pre-patch stuff, right, for the Overwatch League teams. I think it's only a matter of time until we get the information.
Yeah, I will say that there's meant to be, this is now less in terms of scale, way lower in scale compared to the earnings call, but there was meant to be a Contenders / Path to Pro announcement.
True.
Right.
Coming very soon. Should be today, actually. It's been enough time that'll be coming today. So we'll be able to talk about that on the next episode and whatever other news. But, you know, really at this stage, we're already into February. We've really got to start hearing something about Overwatch 2, especially because if there was a BlizzCon line, we'd be watching that. We'd be seeing the new whatever they prepared. At this point in the year, there should be no excuses anymore in terms of holding back information. Like you got to give us something. You know, we need. I was going to say breadcrumbs, but like fuck it, give us some slices. I'm not asking for the whole loaf, just a slice or two. You know,
right?
That's all I need. Okay.
Yep. Should be coming.
All right. 212. Done and dusted. Thank you so much for joining us this week. 213 coming up next week. Hopefully some more stuff to do. Head up the Patreon for more Get Off the Fence action. And enjoy the rest of your week. Watch Attack on Titan so we have something to talk about for the intro next time around. I enjoy what we talk about the intro, but we'll have plenty to discuss for the next one for that. And we'll see y'all in the next coming week. Bye.